The third type of learning we need to cover is observational learning, which is simply watching others and then performing or modeling that task. Performing tasks that are observed make things much easier to master, as opposed to just hearing or reading directions. Imagine when you were 4 years old learning to tie your shoe when someone was simply explaining the directions. First of all, you need to take one string and make a loop, then circle around with the other and pull the string through a hole, and so on and so on. No one would have ever learned how to tie their shoes, but by watching someone perform that task made it so much easier to learn and master. I am terrible with technology, but by watching a YouTube video, I was somehow able to learn to convert these PowerPoints to a video. That would have been impossible with written instructions. One reason it is so easy to observe and model that behavior is because we have special circuitry in the brain called mirror neurons. Whenever you learn something, you create a neural connection or pathway in the brain. Each time you think about, experience, or perform a task, that neural pathway is activated. But here's what's really cool. In addition, whenever you watch someone experiencing an emotion or performing a task, that same neural pathway is activated. So seeing is like doing. That explains why it is so hard to fight back tears when we see someone crying in a movie. We've all experienced sadness and created a neural pathway for that in our brain. So when we see someone crying, it triggers that neural pathway and makes us feel sad as well. This is the reason why we feel empathy for others. And it also explains why we learn so well by observing. Please click on the term mirror neurons to watch a quick video that explains them a little bit more in depth. One psychologist that you want to associate with observational learning is Albert Bandura. He is very well known for his research with children, which he called the Bobo doll experiment. He wanted to see if young children would model aggressive behavior if they observed it. His experiment was conducted in 1961. With the invention of the television, it became widely available to American families in the 1950s. Most households had one TV by 1961. Many programs on the television, such as westerns, cartoons, etc., had a lot of violence. He was wondering what effect this violence would have on children who were watching. His experiment involved some children watching a woman beat up an inflatable clown called a Bobo doll. Some children watched and some did not. The children who watched the woman beat up the Bobo doll in turn modeled that aggression when they were allowed to have access to the inflatable clown. You can click on the hyperlink to watch this video. In addition, recent studies show that children who play violent video games and watch violence, such as wrestling, on television are more prone to behavior problems in school. Other examples: when Clockwork Orange was released, there was a very graphic rape scene. Rapes increased tremendously after this was released. This had to be removed from the video. After the first school shooting in Columbine, there were copycat threats in every single state but Vermont the following week. Observation of violence tends to lead to antisocial behavior. On the flip side, yes, children are prone to model behavior they observe, but if they are placed in a positive environment and observing helpful, positive, pro-social behavior, they in turn tend to model that behavior as well. Finally, two types of observational learning. One is called latent learning. Think of latent learning as later learning. This is observing certain tasks, and you're really not aware that you're learning until you're asked to perform those tasks later on. A cognitive map is simply a mental representation of your surroundings. Many of you, when you go off to college, you'll be in an unfamiliar territory. In order to navigate from class to class and going from building to building, you may want to look at a map of the campus first and get that mental image that will help you navigate.